Welcome to the Belonging Podcast by Elev8 Villages, a space where real stories open hearts, widen circles, and remind us that we truly belong to each other. I'm your host, Melissa Kaye, and today we're doing something really special, something we will never do again. This is our premiere episode where we're actually going to give you a behind-the-scenes look at how a vision like this comes to life. So settle in as we explore what belonging feels like, why it matters, and how conversations like these can spark a movement. Today, I'm joined by someone who is absolutely essential to bringing this podcast into the world. His name is Michael Potterf, and Michael is a seasoned multimedia producer, director, and storyteller. His company, MRP Media, helps mission-driven creators bring their ideas to life through film, audio, and thoughtful content production. He has, and I can tell you from experience, he has a real gift for bringing people through the creative, technical, and multi-layered facets of telling story. And he is the professional walking me through the entire logistics side of launching this podcast. Now, there's another very special reason why I'm thrilled that Michael will be our first podcast guest. And I'll reveal that to you a little bit later in the episode, so stick around. So let's get going. Michael, welcome. I am so grateful you're here.
Likewise, thank you for having me, Melissa. It's a pleasure to be here and to be talking with you on such a noble mission.
Well, this podcast would not be happening on this timeline without you. So, Michael, before we talk gear and logistics and all the things to start a podcast, I'd love to start with something human. When you hear the word belonging, what comes to mind for you?
What comes to mind for me is something internal rather than an external environment that people are looking for. Obviously, an external environment plays such a large part into feeling the sense of belonging and having a place. There wouldn't be a place without a place, that exists. But this feeling within oneself of being able to move through life and with purpose and intention. I think if you can move through life with those two things, you can feel belonging wherever you go. So I think of it almost like, it makes me think of like a mirror looking into oneself and answering the question, do I feel like I belong here? Do I feel that I'm in my place? Do I feel that I'm on the right path? That's what comes to my head when I think about belonging.
Wow, I love that. I love what you said about like finding purpose. Do you feel like when you belong someone, sort of that purpose becomes clearer? Like maybe in some ways it's mirrored back to you because things are, whether it's a feel or like the outcome you're seeing, is there, like when you said the word purpose as it relates to belonging, that really kind of struck a curiosity chord in me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to think that one example that comes to mind is a sales job that I held about a year ago. And walking into that environment, I didn't feel like I belonged there necessarily. There was such this high vibrational energy that I wasn't familiar with, yet I was on a mission. So based on that mission that I had, I knew I belonged there. It was a place for me to enter and grow within to get to that point of belonging that I had envisioned for myself mentally and internally.
That's so interesting. So as you were there for a while, did you then later on feel more like you belonged? Like when
Definitely.
you learned to adapt to that energy?
Mhm. There were just these handful of experiences that each encounter with them validated that belief in myself that I belonged in that environment. I knew again I belonged there due to my mission, the purpose I had, but in the environment there was that my threshold, or for lack of a better word, had to be raised in order to get there. And those experiences that increase that threshold, such as learning different skills within the place, having experiences both in the work and outside of the work, becoming friends with the people there, getting validation from them, and that, like, saying that you have the it factor that it takes to be in this place. Those handful of experiences help raise that bar externally, I would say, versus the
Wow.
internal mission.
That's cool. So part of what made you feel like you belonged was them validating, like, yes, you can do this. Listen, we're gonna pull you up as we keep climbing. Like, am I hearing that right?
Definitely, especially considering the people who were telling me those things were people who I'd say created that environment, who set the bar so high.
Mm.
Mm.
I love this. So they set the bar that high and they created space for people to come in that weren't at that level. That's amazing. That kind of reminds me, I had sort of the opposite thing happen where very shortly I was in a sales environment that I came into high energy, match their energy. I know I can do this, I can kill it. And a few months in, I realized that this product for me to sell was really out of integrity. Like, I came in with the highest hopes, but the more I learned about the culture of the business and the things that were going on, for me, the product was so far out of my integrity to sell that the longer I was there, like, my belonging tank just emptied and I was like, wow, I don't belong here anymore. So it was nothing that they did. It was literally like um an imbalance in integrity for me. So I love, like, thinking how that can happen both ways.
Right, and at the same time, I think too, because the same thing happened to me with that job. I came to realize that the product I was selling, like, as much as I believed in it, I didn't feel that I was the right person to be selling it. But
Okay.
that belonging didn't necessarily waver completely. It validated me to leave that place and then go pursue other things that I had always wanted to pursue, just at this point with more skills and tools that I've gained while working at that environment to move forward with.
That's so interesting to kind of see, like, seasons of belonging, and that they still created that space. Oh, I love that. Beautiful. Thank you. So let's shift a little bit into storytelling. You help so many people bring their stories and ideas to life. Why do you think that conversations, like real conversations, are such a powerful tool for connection?
I think that again, there each person is searching for this essence of belonging in so many different ways, shapes, and forms. I think there's so much out there that there's just generally so much out there. There's so much to resonate with and to not resonate with. And I've heard a quote that the most successful people have a high disagreeability rate, right? They say no to a lot of things. And the reasoning behind that is because there's very few things that are going to get you to your goal. There's so many more things that will distract you from achieving that goal. So for the ability to say no to most things and yes to the few that'll push you forward in your mission is like a superpower. So I think people are searching for belonging because there's so much out there that's leading them so many different ways that a lot of people are getting lost. And I'm speaking a lot from my own experience and from the experience of those around me. But that's my perspective on that question, is that people hear and see so much that leads them astray from what really internally will fulfill them. So
Mm.
now people are hungrier than ever to find a place where they belong. And I
Wow.
think that's the situation that's going on with a lot of people.
Absolutely. Like there's so much distraction in the world and so much like all of this clutter that's we're constantly being told what we're supposed to think and what we're supposed to do and all of that. So yeah, having that sort of fracture our sense of belonging. Hmm. Wow. Well, let's switch a little bit into sort of the more logistical, technical side of this podcast, of getting a podcast from the brain into like actually being able to put it out to the public. So, for people listening, since you're my podcast guru right now, for people listening who've never created a podcast before, but who might think that that might be something they want to do in the future, what would you say are the most important things to get right in the beginning? Like, obviously, the first is the worst. I know you agreed to be on my first podcast, and I know I'm going to grow and get so much better at this. But what things do we need to get right from the beginning just to even get it off the ground?
Yeah. There's a few things that come to mind. One I want to say is like an antithesis sort of statement, and that is embracing imperfection. I think aiming to get everything right will hold you back from getting your
Mm,
message out there. And this is speaking to whoever is needing to hear this message. Um, that you don't have to get everything right. I think the right thing to do is to do it at the end of the day. I um I do think there's certain things to lean into that help the mission stay like authentic and impactful. And I think leaning into those things are the right things to do. And that's different based on whoever is starting the podcast. What's authentic for you is inauthentic for somebody else. But I
mm,
think to lean into that authenticity is one of the right ways to go about it. I think also being in a way unforgiving about sharing your message. Everyone has a message to share. And I don't think that you should tell yourself you're wrong for wanting to share your message. One should lean into the message that they have and push forward in that direction. And one thing that comes to mind too is like don't be afraid to share it. Don't be afraid to yell your message at the end of the day. If that's what you want to do, don't dip your toe in it. Like lean into it. If it starts as dipping your toe in the beginning, so be it, but just lean into that direction. Um, I think that's the
yeah.
general message I'd give to somebody looking to get it right. The right thing to do is to start.
Mm. Like if you're going to do it, do it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Just jump in. Love it. Love it. So, turning more specifically to the Belonging podcast, as we've been getting ready to launch these last few weeks, um, could you share with our audience some of the behind the scenes decision that we were testing last week and today, and why it matters like for the audience? Like why as a host this would matter to me so that my audience can have a great experience. What are some of those things we've been testing?
Mhm. I think you have a very, again, noble mission. For logistics to stop you from fulfilling that mission would be a negative word I'm looking for. This needs to come out, and we need to find a way that it can be sustainable. And I think that's the big thing. How can we make this something seamless and simple that you can continue to do on a regular basis so that it doesn't eliminate that opportunity for your message to get out? I think that's the bottom line thing. And again, it'll look different for different people, but for us, for instance, using the software that we're using right now to record this, like Riverside, it was worth taking the time to look into to understand how it works to in order to keep it consistent and keep it coming out. I think I think that is one underlying theme that went for each stage of the process. From the very start when we're getting the mission aligned, again, getting clear with what your goal is so that we don't stray off track of what the mission actually
Mm.
is. I
Yeah.
think, again, the theme is being able to stay consistent with it so that the message can get out. Because again, you're somebody who you have sales skills, you have the community building skills, the deep work and connection skills. It's a matter of just how do we take this energy and align it to this specific output of a podcast. And there's
Hmm.
just those few little logistic things in there. But again, at the end of the day, it can be as simple as opening up your phone, recording a message, and posting it on social media. So, whatever it takes to get the message out and keep it consistent, I think has been the way we've been coming about the planning of this.
Yeah. I can tell you it's been really helpful for me. Like I'm always moving like from my heart and I want to have these conversations and I already have, quite a few guests lined up between now and the end of the year so that in January when our episodes start coming out, I'm not starting off behind. Like I want to start off ahead. That was really important to me and I really appreciated you really listened to in our first interview, our first conversation, I could tell that you sort of like got me. Like you understood that I didn't need a ton of help with clarifying my mission. Like we definitely batted that back and forth. But for me, it was something like, how is it going to be sustainable? Like if I don't have a huge budget for a podcast, I can't hire a full-time editor. So yeah, finding that software that does a lot of it kind of for me. And I just need to go and tweak little things. Like it might not be on the high end of a perfectly professionally produced podcast, but it certainly is going to look better than, what it might have looked like 5 years ago without such a intuitive software. And so leading me to a software that would take a little bit of the editing burden off of me and then helping me learn how to set up lighting and tested out mics, things like that, because it's important to me that my listeners or viewers aren't turned off right away. Like, oh, I can't stand to watch or I can't stand to listen or like, man, that's so for me, it was important to bring some excellence even in the beginning, but also on a like shoestring budget. We have a wonderful patron, Deanna Laughlin. I'd like to do a little shout out and a thank you to Dee so much for helping us like onboard this. And, we were able to invest in a couple of lights and the software. And so that was really important. But Michael, you've been really instrumental in helping me sort of chunk down what was most important. Like I didn't need a big fancy set, like I think my set here cost me all of about $40. And then, a couple lights and you help me to choose lights that while we're on the less expensive side would light this area. So little things like that, you've been such a help to me. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure again. And that actually encourages me to touch back on a previous question, like what are the things to get right? Lighting and audio, tech on the technical note, there are things to get right. I had a film teacher who once said that the most offensive thing in film is bad audio. Like you can get by with bad visuals, it might add some sort of feel to it. But if the audio sounds like it's recorded on a potato, then the audience isn't gonna like that. It's gonna immediately like strike as offensive in a way. So those are two things that you got right and you picked up. I'm glad I could help in like tweaking a little bit.
Thanks. Thanks. I told you at the top of the show that I had a very special reason to have Michael here, in addition to all of his professional knowledge that he's brought to our show. But now is the time. Michael, one of the reasons I'm so grateful that to be working with you and also to be bringing you on as the first guest as we bring this podcast to life is because your story isn't just technical. It's deeply human. Michael knows firsthand what it feels like to navigate the world without guaranteed belonging, without safety nets that so many of us take for granted. Michael had a lot of experience in his young life through the foster system. And so, Michael, if I could ask you, before we get to the next question, just a little bit in your own words, what were things that the experience of being in the foster system created that now as an adult you've sort of had to learn through and get past, that people who grew up in a stable home may not have had to deal with?
Mhm. And I think my experience can span beyond just can relate to a lot of people who haven't been in foster care, but who may have come from a similar place. And that is when, from the age of 3 to about 5 years old, I was in the foster system. I was taken from my family and then got placed with my aunt. And so my earliest memories, I was in foster care. I was around the age of 5 taken back from my aunt and placed back with my family, the family that I was initially taken from. And I'll say that I probably would have been better off staying in the foster care system. That experience growing up with the family that I was in wasn't the most conducive for belonging by any means. I
Mm.
think I had learned a lot of like coping skills or coping mechanisms that encouraged me to become like a recluse, almost like a black sheep. I felt like I was the youngest child with 3 older sisters. Closest
Mm.
in age was 5 years ahead. So we weren't going to school together. We didn't interact a lot, and again felt sort of like a black sheep in a way. I think a lot of there's just a lot of experiences that again made me pull away, and those stayed with me like going into adulthood, and they weren't conducive to a lot of growth or again sense of belonging.
Thank you. I appreciate your vulnerability and sort of letting our whole audience, know what some of your early years experience was. So I think with what you just told us, like your perspective on belonging carries a really unique weight, especially for this podcast and the whole mission of Elevate Villages. We might want to talk a little bit more about some of the ways that you've healed. But before we do that, why do you feel, or what are your feelings around a podcast centered on belonging? And why is that especially important in the culture we have and the time we're at? What makes belonging and building together, like what makes that so powerful right now?
I think it's powerful for the sake of those individuals who are searching for it. And that's going to be different based on different people. But I'll say my favorite podcast that I've ever watched is one that I would put on very often, and I would feel like I'm at home while it's playing.
Mhm.
And it's something that I never thought I would feel via a podcast. Um, yeah, it was honestly when I came to that conclusion, like understanding like how it was affecting me, I was mind blown. I had never watched reality TV, but the podcast was basically like this family sitting down, and it was a comedy podcast, but they had this rapport and this way of banter that made you feel like you were sitting right there with them and a part of their community. So it was something that I would put on, and it would recharge this feeling of belonging within me. I think that's very much important for people, for who are searching for that or who may have had a lack of that, whether they know it or not. I think it's extremely important.
Wow. I'm curious when you said that. Now I'm like, I wonder if there's things we can do within the Belonging podcast. How can we create that space? What are ways we can create this space and these conversations so that people listening do feel like they belong here? And maybe it is like a fresh breath in the middle of maybe otherwise chaotic or lonely life. Maybe like, like when you smell fresh bread, you just like walk in and it's just like that smell, like everything in that moment feels like a warm blanket. Like any ideas just off the top of your head, how we can create that kind of belonging in this space for our listeners?
I think the first thing is just being there, just existing and doing the fulfilling the mission. For that podcast I mentioned for myself, there are a lot of people who don't like it, who would see the dynamic and be like, "This seems so unprofessional. This
Mm,
it seems like they're just sitting down, um, they're just sitting down, just yapping with each other about nothing in particular. It seems to be random." But that's what resonated with me, and it felt so authentic to me that I could just be there, experience their authenticity. The dynamic that they had within that, again, they were a family.
mm,
It was 4 people, 2 who were in a long 10-year relationship, and then their 2 producers who they had each known for between 3 to 8 years, so they have this rapport there, and they were unrelenting about expressing themselves. I think that is almost the bottom line. Maybe
mm,
those 2 things, be there and be unrelenting about expressing the message that you're looking to express.
yeah.
They had, I wanna say over 1,000 episodes of their podcast, so there was no shortage of opportunities for me to tune in and feel connected, but at the same time, what can't be replicated and played arguably the largest part was that unrelenting authenticity that they had. They were very funny. They I don't know if they had an intention of belonging within that, but by nature of them expressing themselves, and which I'd imagine came out of this place of belonging, like they would do it out of their home as well. I
Mm,
think that sort of what communicated or opened that space for me to feel belonging is that they felt belonging and they felt the opportunity to express themselves. And I would and then posted it so I could find it.
wow. A couple things are coming up for me. One, like you just found a place you felt like you belong. And once you feel like you belong somewhere, you're going to keep coming back because it feels that part of us that needs to belong. And then right at the end, you said like they felt like they belonged, like they were just authentic. And this is our spot. This is our people. We belong here. And we're not going to hold our belonging back. Like we're sharing whether or not they identified it as belonging, like they obviously felt like they belonged to each other, which is why they could be so candid and authentic in that space. And that's so beautiful. I think my brain is always sort of spinning around belonging and looking for belonging. And so it makes sense that you would have felt like you belonged in a space because they felt. And so, yeah, it might be like, again, I might not be attracted to it or someone else might not be, but that filled what you needed in that season so that you could just have a space to relax. That whole story is beautiful. I'll be thinking about that all week.
They were leading by example in that way. Mm,
Absolutely.
same
Absolutely.
as yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely in this space, we definitely want to lead with that authenticity and a curiosity. I think belonging is so much bigger than a definition or bigger than a study or bigger than a book. I think it's a constant journey of learning to belong and learning to make people around us feel like they belong. Any final words you'd like to bestow on us? Maybe some learnings you've had that you'd like to share? Whatever. Open mic for you before we end our podcast today.
Yeah, I would say 2 things. One, for those who are listening, stay tuned. I know Melissa has so much to offer and energy that is so conducive for belonging. I felt it myself personally, but to hear that you have these interviews set up, it's like I'm excited to tune in to future ones. And anyone who's searching for this sense or place of belonging, this is where you're going to be able to find that. That's one thing I want to say.
Mm,
2, I wanted to offer an experience for myself on a tactical note of finding, pursuing, and capitalizing on belonging. And I'll I'll provide that with like a story. I've mentioned my upbringing And you could imagine how an upbringing such as what I mentioned can lead to someone feeling less belonging or developing like coping mechanisms that make it hard to feel um, like you belong someplace. I I would recluse a lot and I would always like study and learn new things and develop this like inner self-efficacy that I wanted to do something more. So there was like a hunger there for myself. So I think that was like step one for me, develop this hunger that existed. And once I turned 18 and like felt this new freedom, I started going out searching for opportunities to fulfill the dreams that I had. And in that, I met so many people that would help gas me up or support me in finding those or achieving those goals that it made it hard not to feel like I belonged because I developed that mission, that purpose for myself, and then sought out to try to achieve it and would find a lot of people who, again, supported me through that. So I use this analogy of like steps on a ladder to success. I think one of the biggest things for me was coming into contact with Just in Time for Foster Youth, which you know about, Melissa, is
Yeah.
a nonprofit organization that helps people who were in foster care down here in Southern California and San Diego. And from they help them from the ages of 18 to 27 and beyond with different resources and support. But if you're between the ages of 18 and 27, they help a lot. I was introduced to them by my school's foster youth program, which my school's foster youth program, they would call me up and I was like, who are these people trying to say they're gonna help me?
Mhm.
And one day I just decided to have a meeting with them and they provided me with so many resources. And I was like, wow, I was ghosting them on these phone calls, not knowing they were actually there to support me. And they connected me with Just in Time. I pretty much did the same thing. I showed up one time and they gave me a laptop and a printer for their like college
Mhm.
event thing, like their cohort. And each time that they helped me, I was blown away by the fact that there's people who actually exist to support you and in going where you want to go. And on the note of belonging, it it goes like hand in hand where the fact that they're there to support me in achieving the goals, it means that there's a place where I belong.
Mhm.
And I started to become addicted to finding support for my goals, inadvertently becoming addicted to finding belonging wherever I go in life. To the point where now I feel so extremely confident in cultivating belonging within myself. If I don't feel like I belong in a place, but I have a mission set out, I know the tools that are going to make me feel like I belong in that place. And it starts with leaning into finding that support, I think. Leaning into, I want to say, studying the place, finding the tools, the skills that people are using within those environments. You can create belonging. Long story short. You can
And I
create
think
belonging.
it
So,
right. Did some of that belonging also come with learning to trust again?
mhm.
Like
Yeah.
you had to learn to trust that are people out there who are there to do good and to help and to give you resources that you
I
needed.
just wanted to offer that sort of jumble story and like experiences for myself because it's something that I only realized like in hindsight looking back at a lot of those experiences, but any encouragement for people to lean into that, to find it for themselves, both
Mhm.
internally and then externally, um, I think is very valuable lesson from my experience.
Yeah, I love that you got to where you could lean into support and like looking for it. I know in our world, we've been so trained to be like resilient and powerful and independent and not need anybody, like self-made people, like you hear that so much. I've started attuning my ear to hearing that in language. And when in the scope of belonging, like that sort of independence, grit really doesn't have a place. Like in belonging, we support each other. We all bring our gifts to the table and we all figure out where we give and where we receive and where we let our gifts flow. And so the fact that you say, hey, it's okay to ask for support is absolutely 1000% okay. And I'm really glad that you found that and leaned into it, because look, now you're the person who can be there for me as we bring this story of belonging full circle to our audience. It's such a beautiful thing. And I'm also glad you brought up just in time. Yes, for all of my studies and research and looking at different models over the last couple of years, preparing, for Elev8 Villages, for the first village to be built, I ran across just in time early on in my research. And of all of the wonderful nonprofits and great work that people are doing all around the country, just in time is a model that has been so successful. I think if I remember right, they've been around for like 27 years, 20 something.
I wouldn't say yes, somewhere near that. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in the 20s to 30s. And just such big hearts, and the way that they really wrap youth there in San Diego with so many resources. Oh, also, let me say for our listeners, the way I found Michael is he was just in time hosts like an event called Shark Tank. Like it's their own version of Shark Tank. And that's how I found you. And that's why we're working together.
So just in time has so many different programs that are so helpful on different journeys from wellness um to belonging. There's a cohort specifically for belonging called My Life, My Story. Um, Business with Pathways in the Shark Tank program, and I've done each one of them. And in the Shark Tank program, it starts with like applying with your business plan and then getting accepted, then going through the 8-week series of coaching. We got paired with different coaches and got to do workshops from MBA professors at USD here. And then you submit your final business plan, and then top 3 of those get selected. And I was placed 3rd in that one. And we got to present at this conference and we won some money. And afterwards got paired with angel investors for more additional funding. And yeah, I went through the whole process, and it was extremely invaluable. I'm so grateful for the experience, but it's unbelievable to think that people create programs like these for people solely to help them grow. Like, these opportunities exist out there, and it's just mind-blowing to me. I would have never thought that growing up, that I'd be able to have these opportunities for myself, but those programs are invaluable, each one of them.
Well, I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to be a part of them and found them and utilized them. Like, grab the opportunity that was in front of you. Michael, thank you so much for being such a big part of this first step and for bringing both your expertise and your heart into this space today. This podcast is going to take shape one conversation at a time. And thanks to your insights, your experience, and your willingness to walk with me through all the behind the scenes work, just means more to me than you know. And I want to officially invite you, once we've passed our first 100 episodes or 1,000 downloads or however we're going to count this, I want to invite you to come back on the podcast and we can kind of reflect on the journey. I hope you're going to be willing to do that with me.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, perfect. So to everyone listening or watching this premiere episode, this is just the beginning. The Belonging Podcast by Elev8 Villages is being built with intention, with love, and the belief that belonging can heal us individually and collectively. We can't wait to bring you more conversations, more powerful guests, and real stories of what belonging looks like, feels like, and makes possible. This is Elev8 Villages, where belonging becomes a place that we build together. Bye for now.